Hey there, welcome back to Limabean Living. In today's video, I thought I would share how I make cream cheese stuffed sourdough bagel bites. So let's get into this. So in the afternoon, one day I fed my sourdough starter. If you don't have any experience with this, I do have a recipe video where I share how I make sourdough bread, so make sure you check that out. But once the starter had fully at least doubled in size, I knew that I was ready to assemble my bagel dough. So here I'm going to be combining 500 grams of flour, which is about 4 cups plus 2 tablespoons. Two teaspoons of salt, 2 tablespoons of sugar, you can also use honey, and about 1 cup and a tablespoon of water, which is around 255 grams. Once all of that is in the bowl, we are going to be adding in our active sourdough starter, and we want about 100 grams of that. Now I plan on using my stand mixer to knead this dough together, but if you don't have a stand mixer, you can use just like a wooden spoon or like a rubber spatula and mix this dough until it starts to come together, and then you can knead it by hand for, I don't know, if you're doing it by hand, maybe like 10 minutes. It would be a lot of work. But I planned on using my stand mixer to let it do all of the work for me. And I initially started with just some like quick little spurts of turning on the machine and turning it off so that the flour wouldn't fly everywhere. And once the dough began to come together a little bit more, I turned on the mixer to just like its lowest speed and let the mixer knead it for around 6 minutes. About halfway, I did scrape down the sides of the bowl so that all of the ingredients that I threw in the bowl would get incorporated into the dough. So you can see the dough has nicely come together. I'm just gonna kind of scrape it down and pat it so that it's more of a ball. And then we are going to loosely cover this bowl with my little container. If you do something that is maybe a little bit more breathable, like a towel or something, you might wanna wet it so that it doesn't totally dry out. But I'm gonna let this sit on my counter until the morning when it is ready to work with. Now, the recipe that I do follow suggests letting it sit at room temperature for anywhere from 8 to 12 hours. I'm actually going to let it go a little bit longer because my sourdough starter peaked a little sooner than I had anticipated. But that just means that the dough will have longer to ferment and it will actually be slightly healthier for us. So it's not a complete loss. Later in the evening, I prepared my cream cheese. I took 1 block of cream cheese and cut it up into 24 little pieces. And then once that tray was prepared, I stuck it in the freezer so they would be nice and firm when I'm ready to work with them the following morning. So as you guys saw, the dough definitely puffed up. It was nice and fermented. And so it is the next morning, and what I'm gonna do is just try my best to divvy this up into about 24 equal-sized portions. They didn't all come out perfect, and that's okay. We just want them to be relatively the same size. But if you really want to be precise, you can measure out how much dough you have and divide that into how many bagels or bagel bites you want to make and do the math and get it exactly the same for each bagel bite. Once I had my dough divvied up, I took my frozen cream cheese blocks and surrounded them with the dough, making it as smooth as possible and pinching the dough so that there weren't any openings. I could have done a few of these a little bit better, to be honest, because they did find a way to pop open and some of the cream cheese escaped, but it wasn't a big catastrophe. They were still just as delicious, but they just weren't as aesthetically pleasing. Now that the stuffed bagel bites have been assembled, we're actually going to let them rise again. So I'm covering this with a towel and we're going to be coming back to that in about 30 minutes to an hour. And they have one more step before going into the oven. We actually have to give them a little bath in some boiling sugar water. I measured out about 6 cups of water into my little pot, and we're going to let this come to a boil before adding in 1 tablespoon of sugar. At the same time, I'm also preheating my oven to 415 degrees, and I use convection just so that there's better airflow. Now for half of these bagel bite balls, we are going to be topping them with some everything bagel seasoning, so that is why I have a little bowl ready for that. And we're gonna drop our little bagel balls that have kind of puffed up on the counter. We're gonna drop it into the boiling water. Now we're obviously not fitting in all 24 at once, so this will take a couple batches. Now if you are making just bagels, it won't take as long because you're not dealing with as many items to boil. But that aside, we're placing these balls in and letting them boil about 2 minutes on one side and then flipping them and letting them boil for another 2 minutes. So about 4 minutes total. After the 4 minutes in the bath, we are going to take them out and just set them down so that they can cool enough so that they can be handled. And we're going to dip them just one side into the bagel seasoning topping. And by this time, my oven was preheated and ready to go, so I threw this first tray in, and I let this tray with the seasoning on top bake for about 22 minutes. While that tray was in the oven, I continued to give the remaining bagel bites a little bath, and I wanted to show you guys this little technique. Sometimes the bagel bites will stick to the bottom of the pan if they don't get enough of the boiling water touching it before it hits the bottom. So I like to use a spoon sometimes to just kind of ease the bagel bite into the water, and then I let it drop, and there's really not a problem with it sticking to the bottom. So the final 12 bagel bites have been boiled and they're ready to go in the oven. You can see that our everything bagel bites are nice and golden brown, and I just couldn't wait to cut into one of these and enjoy it. Obviously, you can change how much cream cheese goes into these bagel bites. If you love cream cheese, you can use a nice big brick like I did, or you can use not as much. You can just use maybe like a little centimeter cubed worth and have a small bite of cream cheese in these bagel bites. So the plain stuffed bagel bites baked for about 20 minutes. I felt like they looked nice and golden brown and they looked done at about 20 minutes. So I just made the decision to take them out, and they were still very delicious and not, over baked or burnt on the bottom or anything like that. I store these in a container and put them in our fridge. And when I'm ready to enjoy them in any of the following days, I usually just microwave them for about 30 seconds. And then they are nice and warm and very delicious. Let me know if you plan on giving this recipe a try down below in the comments. And if you are new here, I would love it if you stick around and subscribe. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up button, and I will catch you in the next one. You've made it to the end of the video. If you didn't know already, every Monday and Friday, you can find motherhood and lifestyle content on this channel. And since us moms have to do it all, that may mean yummy recipes, easy DIYs, mom hacks, cleaning and organization, or just a combo of everything. Please know that you are loved and you are made for greatness, and I will catch you in the next one.